The golden age of Hollywood. News of his death today, bringing back memories of the way we were.
Robert Redford passed away on September 16, 2025, and in the wake of his death, the world is looking back at a life that was as much about what he didn't reveal as what he did. With his golden hair, effortless charm, and magnetic presence on screen,
huge loss to our community. Not only was he an incredible actor, he was one of the first guys to do political thrillers. We lost a legend.
Redford was one of the last connections to a Hollywood that felt larger than life. But behind the glamour and accolades was a man who guarded his inner world with remarkable discipline. Even at 89, he chose to spend his final days away from cameras and headlines.
Breaking news, Robert Redford, the Hollywood golden boy who became an Oscar-winning director,
retreating to his ranch, a sanctuary he had built over decades to protect the parts of life that mattered most to him. For over 60 years, Robert Redford mastered a delicate art, the art of concealment. In an industry that rewards exposure and oversharing, he maintained a public image carefully crafted to reveal only what he wished to share. He never stumbled in interviews,
yeah, there has been some reference to where have you been, or I've heard words like come back.
Never became tabloid fodder, and never offered the confessions that others around him seemed to trade so freely. While his contemporaries filled memoirs with secrets, Redford remained deliberate, measured, and quietly commanding. Everything you saw was intentional. Nothing more, nothing less. In a world increasingly obsessed with public vulnerability,
meet him and you're just overwhelmed by just how real and really charming.
He believed some truths were sacred, private, and beyond the marketplace. But in his silence, a deeper story was waiting. After his passing, fragments began to emerge. Private letters, interviews from later in life, reflections from friends and family that revealed a man whose exterior calm masked profound personal struggles. Losses and regrets had shaped him in ways the public rarely glimpsed. His life was marked by tragedy, restraint.
34 years now. I think we're at a point where I can move on.
And a pursuit of meaning that went far beyond fame or recognition. And now, piecing together these fragments, a portrait emerges of the real Robert Redford, a man who lived deliberately, loved quietly, and suffered deeply. The first shadow that followed him throughout life began at birth. Redford was born a twin, but his brother died during delivery. For years, this fact remained virtually unknown, only mentioned in a quiet 2013 profile in The New Yorker. Those who knew him later explained that this loss shaped much of Redford's lifelong search for identity. Friends recalled him speaking of a sense of incompleteness, a phantom presence that lingered as he moved through life. It wasn't something he mourned publicly, but it infused the stories he chose to tell on screen, behind the camera, and through the films he directed. Characters struggling with identity, men seeking themselves, fractured lives piecing together lost parts of themselves. These themes ran through his work from The Way We Were to The Natural, and in his directorial projects like Ordinary People and Quiz Show. That early loss seemed to embed in him a need to explore meaning, to grapple with who he was and what might have been. Questions he carried silently for decades. Just a few years later, another tragedy struck. In 1959, Redford and his first wife, Lola Van Wagen, experienced the death of their infant son, Scott, to sudden infant death syndrome. At just 23 years old, Redford was forced to navigate a grief that few could understand. While biographies noted the event, he spoke of it rarely and always with careful restraint. Those close to him say the loss reshaped his approach to family, privacy, and work.
After Ordinary People, that I wanted to put something back in my own industry, and I came up with the idea for the Sundance Institute.
He became protective, obsessed with shielding those he loved from public attention. In a world fascinated by celebrity spectacle, he recognized that some pain couldn't be performed or commodified. Experiencing a loss so profound gave him a different lens on life, one that made Hollywood's artificial dramas feel shallow and performative. Starting in the early 1990s, Robert Redford battled peripheral neuropathy, a nerve condition causing weakness, numbness, and pain in his hands and feet, an obstacle that could have ended many acting careers. Yet he endured quietly, often grimacing between takes on the hoarse whisperer but never seeking special treatment. Chronic exhaustion from decades of performing stunts added to his physical strain, but he continued acting, directing, and building the Sundance Institute, keeping his pain private to let his work speak for itself. As a director, he faced further frustrations. While Ordinary People brought acclaim, films like Quiz Show and The Conspirator often struggled for audiences. Redford sought to provoke thought and explore human flaws, prioritizing meaningful storytelling over commercial success, championing independent voices, and leaving a legacy beyond Hollywood's spectacle. Love, too, taught him lessons he carried privately. His marriage to Lola Van Wagen ended in 1985, leaving wounds he rarely spoke of publicly. Later, he lived with Sybil Zaggers for nearly 2 decades before marrying her in 2009. Friends say the delay wasn't a lack of commitment, but a desire to protect what he held dear. Public exposure, he learned, could damage even the strongest bonds. With Zaggers, he created a quiet, private world where he could simply be himself. In a culture where celebrity relationships are broadcast to the world, Redford found joy and meaning in intimacy unseen. His love story was a testament to his belief that some experiences are meant to be lived, not displayed. Behind the measured charm was also a quiet anger at the industry he helped define. Redford despised the commercialization of cinema and the branding of human beings. He rejected talk shows, franchise roles, and lucrative opportunities that might have amplified his fame, believing that the core of storytelling was being eclipsed by marketing. The pressures of Hollywood, the commodification of personal life, the obsession with celebrity, clashed with everything he valued. He expressed this privately, but his refusal to conform became a form of protest, a quiet insistence that some things mattered more than money or visibility. Through it all, he remained fiercely principled, a man who measured his choices not by fame or fortune, but by integrity. Even as he shaped a life of meaning, Redford carried regrets. In his later years, slowed by health and age, he admitted that his relentless work ethic cost him precious time with loved ones and moments of quiet joy. While he had owned his Utah property since 1969, he often found himself pulled away by projects and causes, missing simple pleasures like watching the light change on the mountains or spending unhurried days with family. Despite being a loving father, he acknowledged the sacrifices his ambition demanded. The life he built, a haven in Utah, the Sundance Institute environmental activism, was also a reminder of the trade-offs he made, the paths not taken, and the moments missed. Robert Redford's life was a masterclass in discretion, a deliberate navigation of fame, grief, ambition, and love. He showed that it is possible to live with dignity in an industry that thrives on exposure. He understood that some experiences are too sacred to share and that depth is often found beneath the surface, in the spaces we guard carefully. His films, his activism, and his choices consistently reflected the man he was: deliberate, principled, and deeply human. He did not seek the spotlight for its own sake, but used it sparingly to illuminate what mattered most. Even in silence, he spoke volumes. In an age dominated by oversharing, performative vulnerability, and public spectacle, Redford leaves a different kind of legacy. One where authenticity is measured not by confession, but by consistency. Not by broadcast, but by the quiet integrity of one's choices. He showed that it is possible to love, create, and grieve with grace, and that some of life's most profound truths resist easy articulation. Through his films, through Sundance, and through his environmental work, he continues to teach that meaning is found not in the applause of the world, but in the careful tending of one's life, relationships, and principles. Robert Redford lived on his own terms, balancing ambition with restraint, achievement with discretion, and love with privacy. He reminded us that the quiet, unseen struggles often shape a life far more than the visible triumphs. The man behind the myth was someone who bore loss without spectacle, fought illness without complaint, and pursued art without compromise. He offered his gifts to the world, but kept his soul intact, leaving a model of dignity and integrity that feels increasingly rare today. As we remember Robert Redford, we celebrate not just the films and accolades, but the life lessons embedded in his choices. the power of privacy, the value of integrity, and the beauty of living deliberately. In his resistance to Hollywood's confessional culture, he honored what it means to be fully human. He showed that it is possible to maintain boundaries without building walls, to create without sacrificing oneself, and to live with depth even in a world that demands surface. He left behind stories, institutions, and an example of grace under pressure, and through them, his presence endures. If Redford taught us anything, it's that fame and influence do not require surrendering one's inner life. He built, he loved, he grieved, and he created, all while navigating the pressures of the world with a rare, unwavering dignity. And in a society obsessed with sharing everything, perhaps his most enduring lesson is this: some things are better lived than told. For more stories exploring the lives of the extraordinary and the lessons hidden within them, subscribe to our channel and join us as we uncover the human truths behind the legends.